Shan stumbled into the warehouse, his body a tapestry of pain. Each breath was a shallow victory. Blood seeped from a gash on his forehead, blurring his vision. The warehouse was a cavernous space, a tomb of cold steel and concrete. Dust motes danced in the faint beams of moonlight filtering through the grimy skylights. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the silence. He was alone, the last one. The air hung heavy with the ghosts of the fallen, their whispers haunting the shadows. The metallic scent of blood mingled with the stench of fear, a grim reminder of the carnage he had left behind. He pressed on, his steps echoing in the vast emptiness. There had to be a way out. His gaze darted around, searching for any sign of life, any glimmer of hope in this desolate hellscape. A flickering neon sign, half hidden in the darkness, caught his eye. An arrow, pulsating with an eerie green glow, pointed towards the heart of the warehouse. He hesitated. Could this be a trap? Another cruel trick designed to break his spirit? He knew the game masters were watching, their eyes following his every move. But what choice did he have? He was trapped, his life hanging by a thread. He had to keep moving.
Welcome, Shan. Congratulations on making it this far. You have proven yourself resourceful. Now, the final test awaits. Follow the arrows, Shan. Let us see if you have what it takes to survive.
Shan's jaw clenched. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him break. He pressed on, his hand trailing along the cool glass, searching for an exit. The maze seemed endless, each step echoing his growing frustration. The glass was cold, almost biting, a stark contrast to the heat of his anxiety. He could feel his pulse quicken, the thud of his heart loud in his ears. Every touch against the glass was a desperate plea for freedom, a silent scream in the void. But every turn led to another dead end, another reflection of his own desperation. The mirrors multiplied his fear, each reflection a distorted version of his own panic-stricken face. He felt trapped, ensnared by his own image, each dead end a cruel reminder of his entrapment. The maze was a labyrinth of his own making, a prison of glass and reflections.
Whispers, faint and insidious, began to worm their way into his mind. They were like ghostly fingers, probing the darkest corners of his psyche. The whispers grew louder, more persistent, each one a needle of doubt and fear. They spoke of his failures, his regrets, the moments he wished he could forget. The voices were relentless, a cacophony of torment that gnawed at his sanity.
Voices from his past, echoing his deepest fears, his darkest regrets. They were the voices of those he had wronged, those he had failed. Each voice was a dagger stabbing at his conscience, reminding him of his guilt. The echoes were deafening, a symphony of sorrow and accusation. He could see their faces, twisted in pain and anger, their eyes burning with accusation.
He saw glimpses of the faces he had failed, their accusing eyes boring into his soul. The reflections were distorted, twisted by his own guilt and fear. Each face was a reminder of his mistakes, his failures. The eyes followed him, haunting him, never letting him forget. He felt their judgment, their disappointment, their anger. It was a weight he could not escape, a burden he could not shed.
Then a figure coalesced in the glass ahead. It was a shadow at first, a mere wisp of darkness. But it grew, taking form, becoming more solid, more real. The figure was tall, imposing, a silhouette of menace. It moved with a purpose, a predator stalking its prey. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper, as the figure approached. Tall and imposing, clad in the now familiar black jumpsuit, its face hidden behind a featureless white mask. The mask was blank, emotionless, a stark contrast to the fear it inspired. The figure was a specter of dread, a harbinger of doom. It stood there, silent, unmoving, a monolith of terror. The mask seemed to stare into his soul, seeing his every fear, his every regret. Skay, the enforcer, the embodiment of the game's ruthless brutality. SK was a symbol of the game's merciless nature, a reminder of the stakes. The enforcer was relentless, unyielding, a force of nature. There was no reasoning with SK, no pleading for mercy. The enforcer was the game's iron fist, its executioner. The embodiment of the game's ruthless brutality. SK was a figure of fear, a nightmare made flesh. The enforcer's presence was a constant reminder of the game's unforgiving nature. There was no escape, no respite. The game was a relentless march towards doom, and SK was its herald. SK raised a gloved hand, beckoning him deeper into the maze. The gesture was both a command and a challenge. It was an invitation to face his fears, to confront his demons. The maze was a crucible, a test of his will and his courage. He had no choice but to follow, to step into the unknown, to face whatever awaited him.
Shan had no choice but to follow. The path ahead was dark, uncertain, but he knew he had to move forward. Each step was a struggle, each breath a battle. The maze was a reflection of his own mind, a labyrinth of fear and doubt, but he pressed on, driven by a need to find the truth, to face his demons. The journey was far from over, but he was determined to see it through.
The air crackled with tension as Shan reached the center of the maze. A single spotlight illuminated a steel table, upon which sat a control panel with two buttons, one red, one green. Above them, a digital display flickered to life, the words stark and unforgiving, escape and sacrifice.
The final choice is yours, Shan. Choose wisely.
Shan stared at the buttons, his mind racing. Escape meant freedom, a chance to disappear, to forget the horrors he had witnessed. But at what cost? What would his escape mean for the others trapped in this nightmare? He looked at SK, at the impassive mask that hid the face of his tormentor. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing on the walls, creating an atmosphere of dread. The air was thick with tension. Every breath he took felt like a struggle. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, but he knew he had to stay strong. For a fleeting moment, he thought he saw a flicker of something in the black eye holes. Was it fear? Doubt? Or perhaps a hint of humanity? The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he couldn't afford to be distracted. He had to focus on the task at hand, to find a way out of this nightmare. Pity? Or was it just a trick of the light? The ambiguity of the masked figure's expression only added to his confusion. He had to remind himself that SK was his enemy, the one who had caused him so much pain. But in that moment, he couldn't help but wonder if there was more to SK than met the eye. He realized then that the game masters had miscalculated. They had underestimated him. They thought they could break him, reduce him to a mere pawn in their twisted game. But they were wrong. He had a fire within him, a determination that they couldn't extinguish. He was more than just a player. He was a force to be reckoned with. They had broken his body, but they had not broken his spirit. Every scar, every bruise was a testament to his resilience. He had endured their trials, faced their challenges, and come out stronger. He was ready to fight back, to take control of his destiny.
"You think you can control me?" he roared, his voice echoing through the room. "You think you can break me? You're wrong!" His defiance was palpable, a raw, unfiltered expression of his will to survive.
With a roar of defiance, Shan lunged, not towards the control panel, but towards SK. His movements were swift and precise, driven by a surge of adrenaline. He knew this was his moment, his chance to turn the tables. He slammed his fist into the mirror behind SK, shattering the glass. The sound of breaking glass was deafening, a symbol of his rebellion. The shards reflected the neon lights, creating a kaleidoscope of chaos. Shards rained down around them as Shan grabbed the metal frame and ripped it from the wall. The frame was heavy, but his determination made him strong. He was ready to use it as a weapon, to fight for his freedom. This was his desperate act, his final stand against the forces that sought to control him. SK, caught off guard, stumbled back. Shan pressed his advantage, his rage fueled by months of pent-up fear and anger. He swung the metal frame, catching SK across the chest, hearing a sickening crunch as the mask splintered. SK crumpled to the ground, a whimper escaping its lips. Shan stood over his fallen tormentor, his chest heaving, the adrenaline slowly draining away. He looked down at SK, at the face revealed beneath the shattered mask. It was young, barely more than a boy. His eyes were wide with fear, his breathing shallow. He was just a pawn, like all of them. Shan picked up the mask, the white surface now cracked and stained with blood. It was a symbol of the battles he had fought, the pain he had endured, and the lives that had been lost. Each crack told a story, each stain a memory of a struggle that had pushed him to his limits. He stared at it for a long moment, his mind racing with thoughts of what had transpired. The mask was more than just a piece of his past. It was a reminder of the darkness he had faced and the strength he had found within himself to overcome it. Then turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty alley. The weight of the mask in his hand was a constant reminder of the journey he had undertaken, the sacrifices he had made, and the people he had lost along the way. Leaving SK lying on the floor, the warehouse, once a place of fear and danger, now felt like a tomb, a silent witness to the battles that had been fought within its walls. He stepped out of the warehouse into the cold light of dawn, the fresh air filling his lungs. The world outside was waking up, oblivious to the battles that had been fought in the shadows. The rising sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a stark contrast to the darkness he had just left behind. It was a new day, a new beginning, but the scars of the past would always remain. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The game was over. He was free. But freedom came with its own set of challenges. The world he was stepping into was different from the one he had left behind. It was a world that had changed, just as he had. But the mask, a chilling reminder of the darkness he had faced, remained clutched tightly in his hand. It was a symbol of his victory, a testament to his resilience, and a warning of the battles that were yet to come. A symbol of his victory, and a warning that the fight was far from over. The mask, with its bloodstains and cracks, was a constant reminder of the darkness that still lurked in the shadows. The game masters were still out there, and they were watching. Their eyes were everywhere, their presence a constant threat. Shan knew that his journey was far from over. The dawn had brought a new beginning, but the shadows of the past were never far behind.